Namaskara. My name is Srinivas Samadhananthi. I'm going to talk about secularism and inclusion. What, why, when, and a few details of these things. Okay, and also where. Right. So, why this is, um, so the sadly the secularism is on the wrong side right now. There's a lot of negative perception about secularism, and everybody's looking secularism with suspicion. If not everybody, but significant part of the population is looking negatively about this secularism. There are many causes for this. I think it's largely, I would say that lack of understanding, education about the need, benefits, consequence of not having it, rise of majoritarianism, Hindutva, and associated propaganda, lack of understanding about minority religions and their contribution to society. This is in context to India, and aggressiveness, narrowness, and also a lot of false pride from all sides, not just from Hindu side, so it's also from Muslim side and Christian side, etc. Right? So there is a lot of false pride that has triggered a lot of negative perceptions about the secularism. And I think more than anything, it's the lack of understanding why it existed or existing in different parts of the world, and what would be the consequence if we don't have it. Okay, so and also, another thing just I want to highlight, the problem is not just on the majority side. This is where I would like to differ from the typical left, side of the India, where they think that all these things have happened because of the uh, I mean, not mainly, it's largely because of major Hindutva that has come up, aggressive Hindutva that has come up in the last 10 years or so. But I would strongly disagree with that. Actually, not disagree, but I agree with that. But I also would like to add to that, disconnection from the local culture, history by minorities as well. I'm going to talk about these things in detail in subsequent slides. Let's look at the concepts of secularism from global and also from historical perspective. I'm a strong believer and proponent of secularism, but it has to be understood and appreciated by all sections of the society, including minorities. It is not just the majority have to understand and follow it. The minorities have to understand and appreciate and follow that as well. Okay? And one thing I'd like to highlight that so every country in the world, more or less, so have become multi-religious, multiracial, multilingual and multicultural, pretty much. So maybe there are few tiny countries here and there, but rest of all have become multiracial, multi-religious, multilingual. Hence, the secularism and inclusiveness and mutual respect are absolute necessities for social harmony and economic progress. um, Decline or hatred for secularism is due to lack of good understanding about it and consequence of not having it. Also, there are extreme polarization thanks to the social media. Lack of secularism or lack of inclusiveness have led to many civil wars, unrest, and even international conflicts and wars. So it has caused millions of deaths and massive destruction. I'm going to give examples for this thing. This is a quick introduction about me and my intentions about making these kind of videos in general, and also my disclaimer. Okay. So when I was making this slide a couple of days back, coincidentally, Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong is one of the greatest statesmen we have, but unfortunately, it's not very well heard or widely heard, because Singapore is a small state. But irrespective, is one of the greatest statesmen, contemporary statesmen we have. So he spoke about the typical fault lines that can happen in the societies, right? The race, language, and religion. Singapore is only about 60 lakh population. I'm going to show the details about it. But he highlighted that the Singapore cannot take these things for granted. They have really worked very hard to have a harmony in their society. I'll show you how diverse the Singapore, though it's a small state, and how respectful, mutually respectful the culture is, and also they've ensured that that culture develops, and then there are legal the constitution protects those things, and there are administration that ensures that kind of harmony kind of continues to improve, and also no bad things happen along these fault lines in the race, language, and religion. Okay, I would strongly request to go through this video. Is Lee recent May Day speech, and this there are two videos by CNA Channel News Asia. One for about 16 minutes, another one for 1 hour. I mean, that's a complete speech about 1 hour, 1 hour or so. And the in the 16 minutes video, the from 1 minute 1.5 onwards, there are a couple of minutes he talks about this, the social harmony. Let's look at the Singapore, in a tiny state. As I said, its only population is about 6 million, 60 lakhs, roughly about half the size of Bangalore. Look at its ethnic composition, right? So the racial composition: 74% Chinese, 13% Malay, 9% Indian, and 3% others. In terms of religion, you see there's no religion more than 30%. And there 20% of them have not declared any religion. They don't want to be associated with any religion. Okay, so there are Islam, Taoism, and Hinduism, etc. Right? So this is the kind of composition they have in a tiny country, and they want to make sure that that there is harmony along both this one. I mean, all three: language, religion, and race. Okay. Let's look at UK, our former colonial master, right? So there you can see that the white population is about 87%, and the Indian population of 2.3%, Pakistani 1.9%, etc. Right? So if you see the religious composition, you can see that So there are none have declared by for 52%. So this is how they've kind of moved away from organized religions, and they have all kinds of religions, including 1% Hinduism. You know that Rishi Sunak is the Hindu. He is a practicing Hindu, proud Hindu, but he has African and Indian. Is a person of Indian origin, but his parents and grandparents migrated from Africa to UK. So he was born in UK. But we want to be proud about him, right? So a Indian Hindu becoming the Prime Minister for UK, right? So that means how tolerant that society is. How secular, inclusive that society is, right? So keep the colonial past outside. Let's look at the USA, the most powerful country on the planet, economically, militarily, politically, right? So it has, I mean, the vice president of USA is Kamala Harris. She has Indian, and African, racial mix, and she was, born and brought up in US, right? So if you look at, and we want to be proud about it, right? We want to connect ourselves with that Hindu Indian connection and say we'll feel proud about it, right? Look at the kind of openness and inclusiveness, secularism that is there now in USA. It is not that it was there all the time. So they had a lot of trouble with the racial segregation and slavery and all that, right? So but they've improved, right? If you look at the ethnic composition, look at that, 61% white and 6% Asian, and so on and so forth, right? That the native population is only about 1.1 Native American, they call Red Indians, right? Religion wise, 70% Christianity, 21% unaffiliated, probably is much higher than this one. And, the Hinduism is probably 1% or less. In the 6% Asian, so you see this, so we are the second largest population in USA. We means Indian of Indian origin, 4.5 million, right? Still, it's 1.5% only, 1.4%. It's not big, but the kind of the positions that are held by the people of Indian origins very high, right? It's all the way from to vice president, right? And also the lot of major corporations, Microsoft, Google, and so on. So many other corporations are headed by Indians. So that is possible because they're an inclusive and secular, society and country, right? The constitution protects it. And look at the China. So we think that Chinese are all kind of uniform with the race and language, which is not true. They have a lot of racial diversity, a lot of not so much linguistic diversity, but a lot of racial diversity and also a lot of religious diversity. Right? They are working hard to kind of make that the society is cohesive. And let's look at the Japan. So, it looks Japan is very, what is that, uniform with race and language, which is not true. It has some diversity with the race as well. And also it has some diversity with language. And there are small minority, so who have gone there to work, right? The Korean, Chinese, Filipinos, and even South Asians now, right? So they ensure that there is a religious freedom, and also significant part of the population doesn't affiliate in with any religion, right? In all these things you can see this, right? um, the these countries I told you about, the Singapore, UK, USA, China, Japan. I give some, these are some of the examples I took. I can extend this to most countries. In fact, I'm going to talk through those things in the subsequent slides here. You can see this, see the Christianity that is spread across the world, and Islam spread across the world. You can see the degree of this, the population that is there. Even Hindu, population is dispersed all over the world, right? They're there. I mean, we're there in India, so obviously in Nepal and Mauritius we are the majority, and there, the Indian Hindus are there in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. And also there are Hindus in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, and the entire Gulf, has a lot of Indians and Hindus. And so is the, French, I think it's Suriname and Guyana in South America. And as I said in the earlier slide, there is the 4.5 million Indian population there, and roughly about 2.5 million, almost 3 million Indians are there in Canada. Right, in UK, there are 1% of the 1.5% of the population. I think 2% population is Indian. So if you see this, the world is really, really diverse with race, language, and religion. Unfortunately, this has created some friction, especially in the recent decades, and especially in the last decade. So because of because of large migration, and the second thing is social media. Unfortunately, instead of creating better perception, it has added to this polarization, and there are vested interests who spread the propaganda as well. Um, I think, again, as I said earlier, the problem with the this polarization are, the kind of looking secularism down suspiciously. It is to some extent is, the right wing or orthodox, and the majority is, rising in many parts of the world, in India, in Turkey, in Europe, and even to some extent in US, etc. Right? So but the problem is not just the majority community; it's also a lot to do with the minorities as well. So if there were some, criticisms of some religion, for example, Islam, or Holy Book, Quran, or Prophet, or some, so there will be people, not everybody can be controlled by government or anybody, right? So they make comments, and sometimes it looks like, it's hurting somebody, the sentiments. But when that happens, so what has happened is, the minority community, become very violent, and they set a lot of things on fire, right? So there were a lot of violent street protests and arsonic. So my point here is that when such kind of comments are made, criticism come, or some kind of sarcasm comes, it has to be clarified. And if you want to protest, just protest peacefully. Resorting to violence is not the way, right? And the most of the countries, especially the West, and the lot of developed and developing countries in the Asia as well, they're in a very democratic, and they are also inclusive. And I think this violent protest should not be there. And this is one thing that really kind of hurt me. So I have a lot of respect for Sri Ravi Shankar. I have followed his and I attended a lot of his courses. I like his lot of courses and knowledge he has spread. But unfortunately, somewhere that has been tilting to the majoritarian government in India. It came up in a very ugly way in the last month when Ram Mandir was opened. And he said, country has developed a slave mentality due to insecurity built around secularism. This is very ridiculous. How did we develop secularism? A slave mentality. In fact, we came out of slave mentality because of secularism, right? So I think that he has to reflect. My suggestion is, if there are any comments by such gurus, swamis, mullahs, or fathers and thinkers, there are enough of them in every religion. Uh, they sometimes they put poisonous ideas, narrowness, saying that, oh, we have our religion is the greatest, and we had very glorious past, and if it is only Hindu or Muslim or Islam there, or even Christianity there, this country would be wonderful. And this is all because of the other religion. Please stay away from this one. And the moment you spot those things, try to stay away from those people. You can take the other things, but have quite a bit of suspicion the moment you sense those kind of things. Let's look at the definition, global and historic. To some extent, we looked at the global context. Let's look at some historical contexts as well, and try to understand need and importance as well. To some extent, I already talked about it, guys, because we have multicultural, multi-racial, multi-religious world today, right? And essentially, secularism is all about its principle that advocates for the separation of religions and religious institutions from the affairs of the state. That is making laws, executive, judiciary, public institutions, and practices, right? It promotes the idea that the government should remain neutral in the matter of religion and should neither endorse nor interfere with religious beliefs and practices. And secularism upholds the principle of freedom and of religion, ensuring that individuals have the right to practice any religion, belief system, as well as freedom to change or reject the religion without the fear of persecution or discrimination. So let's look at the secular states. I gave some of the major countries already earlier. Let's look at a global picture. We see this, the whole blue states here, they're all secular. They've really explicitly declared them as secular. What is wrong with? In fact, that is the right step to declare. Whether you declare, it's good to declare. Even if you not declare, this we still need to do it. So there are some states which have not declared themselves as a secular, but a lot of them still follow the secularism. For example, in Denmark and UK, they still have state religion, but you see that they are 99% secular. Without that, Rishi Sunak would not have become UK Prime Minister, right? Even Bangladesh, it was secular, and they declared is that kind of Islamics. I think they gave the importance to Islamic, but still they have the religious freedom, equal rights, and equal opportunities, and the freedom to follow and practice and change the religion as individuals wish. And definitely Indonesia has a lot of religious freedom as well. And even in the Muslim countries, right, there are 24 Muslim countries who have declared as secular states. You can majority of them in Central Asia, some in Africa, right? So even Turkey is a major secular country. There are some states who are Islamic states. Pakistan is an Islamic state. Afghanistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia. These some of the Gulf countries. They have declared themselves as Islamic countries, but still, there are a lot of people from different background, so race, language, and religion. They're all working there, and they're treated fairly, right? So they may not, of course, the Islam has a kind of elevated status there, and their laws are inspired by either they follow Sharia rules or law, or their laws are inspired by, right? So it's fine, but still a lot of people who are working there from different background and religion, race, and language. And some states have declared state religion, right? So even then, as I said earlier, just because they have declared that they have a state religion doesn't mean that they're not secular. In fact, as I said, UK and Denmark, an example I gave, still, they have complete equality in front of law, and they have some connection to church, just largely because of historical reasons. And just to give some historical context, USA is the one, I mean, is the first country to declare themselves as secular state. They declared in 1791. So more than 225 years ago. And why they did it? Because they knew that religion can come in the way of a lot of progress. It can create a lot of conflicts, and so, and also it can come in the way of progress, scientific progress as well. In fact, what has made US so powerful is the scientific and technological progress. With so, I mean, if the religion was had an upper hand, or if it was, if it had some preference for one religion or the other. In fact, when they had this secularism in mind, probably they had subsects of the Christianity fighting among themselves. That's the reason, most likely, they declared it as a secular. Okay, so let's look at in our own backyard, in South Asia. Nepal was uh, it was an Hindu monarchy and till about 10 or 15 years ago. Now that it's declared, they've become a republic. Monarchy, I mean, the kings have been thrown out. And their current constitution, it says it's a secular and socialism oriented. Why did they do it? Because they wanted to ensure that, the Nepal has multi religions, multi race, and they wanted to ensure that so there is harmony, and the people of different faiths and the race are treated rightly, I mean, equally. And same thing with the Bangladesh. So initially it was officially declared as secular, and recently they change that to to give Islam little elevated status. But even then, there is the other religions have they are equal. People are following these religions. They are equal. There is no discrimination based on Hindu and Buddhist by law. Okay, so whether some kind of discrimination always happen in any society, whether it's in India or USA or UK to small extent, but by law, there's no this one. Even they have the freedom to change and propagate religions as well. Let's look at Sri Lanka. So and Bhutan. Also, I told about Bhutan. Tell about Bhutan a little bit here. The Sri Lanka, it had a lot of issues with the race and language and religion, and their constitution gives equal rights to other things. In fact, they didn't have the in fact, they wanted to elevate Buddhism and started discriminating non-Buddhist and non-Sinhalese people. That's when they ran into the kind of civil war. They transferred to the 3 decades. I'll talk about that a little later. So in this context, right now, by law, by constitution, the people of different religion and faith have equal rights. And there's one thing just want to highlight. Countries like Sri Lanka and Bhutan were predominantly Buddhist, and they want to preserve their culture and heritage. Right, so that's, I think, fair, because each country has some kind of a cultural uniqueness, and if it's lost forever. And if it goes, the because of the conversion, the religion changes, the traditional knowledge is lost, the traditional culture is lost. So they are trying to strike a balance between religious freedom and the kind of preserving their tradition, and that's tied to their religion, Buddhism. One thing I just want to highlight, I'm a big proponent of secularism, but should not be really the cover for religious empire building or expansion. I think that's the religious expansionism. Time for religious expansion is should it's over. There are enough countries of Islamic Islam or Christianity, and there's enough population of Islam and Christianity. These are the two major religions who have organized the conversion machinery, right? So I think there are enough examples to show that so they have brought some good things, but at the same time, wherever they've expanded, they didn't become heaven or hell. Okay, so there are mixed bags everywhere. There's no need to convert people unless it comes from individual himself or herself. But the messages of the prophets, the Christ, the Muhammad, can be spread without converting people and saying this is the only way to reach God or salvation. For the salvation, this is the only way. This is the only way to reach heaven. I think that has to go, and this is the only the way of brotherhood, right? So it's a. I think that narrowness has to go away. I'll talk about that a little later. Uh, let's look at. I think let me pause here and come back with the Indian thing in this part two of the video. Okay.